The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of Harmony's Edge Station. Dongwoo Park stood there every morning before his shift, drinking coffee and watching the distant suns. He had been doing this for 3 years now, ever since he became the chief communications officer at the station. The routine made him feel calm. Harmony's Edge sat in empty space between star systems. Its job was simple: listen to signals from across the galaxy and translate messages from alien species. Most days they received trade requests, scientific data, or simple greetings. Nothing exciting ever happened here. Dongwoo walked to the main communications room where his team was already working. Mi-young Kim sat at her station, headphones on, listening to the endless noise of space. She was the best at finding signals hidden in the background static. Next to her, Hyun-Soo Lee studied biological data from distant worlds. At the far end, Sora Choi worked with the translation computers, turning alien languages into human words. "Anything interesting today?" Dongwoo asked as he sat down at his desk. "Just the usual stuff," Mi-young replied without looking up. "Some trading ships asking for directions. A science station sending research data. Nothing special." The day started like any other. Dongwoo checked reports from other communication stations across human space. 17 star systems, billions of people, all living in peace. Humanity had spread far from Earth, but they had learned to get along with their alien neighbors. Wars were rare. Life was good. At exactly 2:47 in the afternoon, everything changed. Mi-young suddenly sat up straight. She pulled off her headphones and stared at her screen. "Dongwoo, you need to hear this." "What is it?" "I found a signal. It's coming from way outside known space. But it's strange." Dongwoo walked over to her station. The signal showed up as waves on the screen, but these waves looked different from normal alien communications. They moved in patterns that made his eyes hurt to look at. "Play it," he said. Mi-young pressed a button. Sound filled the room, but it was unlike anything they had heard before. It was not just noise or words. It was pain, raw, screaming pain that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Hyun-Soo dropped his coffee cup. Sora stepped back from her computer. The sound lasted only 10 seconds, but it felt like hours. When it stopped, everyone stood in silence. "What was that?" Sora whispered. "I don't know," Dongwoo said. His hands were shaking. "But we need to figure it out." "Mi-young, can you clean up the signal?" "I'm trying." Mi-young's fingers moved quickly across her controls. "There's something else here, hidden underneath the sound. It looks like data." "What kind of data?" "Images, lots of them. And some kind of language I've never seen before." Dongwoo called the team together. "Drop everything else. We focus on this signal until we understand it." For the next 6 hours, they worked without stopping. Sora fed the alien language into their best translation computers. Hyun-Soo studied the biological patterns hidden in the transmission. Mi-young cleaned the signal and found more data buried inside. As the hours passed, a horrible picture began to form. The signal was not just a message. It was a record, a detailed list of species that had been captured, studied, and killed. The images showed planets burning, cities destroyed, millions of beings loaded onto ships like cattle. "This can't be real," Hyun-Soo said as he stared at his screen. "These numbers, they're talking about billions of deaths." "The translation is getting clearer," Sora reported. "Whatever sent this calls itself the Convergence. It seems to collect other species. It studies them then." She stopped talking. "Then what?" "Then it kills them all. But not quickly. It talks about experiments, learning how different species think and fight before destroying them." Dongwoo felt sick. "How many species?" "Hundreds. Maybe thousands. The records go back millions of years. The worst discovery came near midnight." Sora was working on a section of the transmission when she suddenly went very pale. "Dongwoo, come here. Now." He rushed to her station. On the screen were images that made his blood freeze. Human settlements. Human faces. People he recognized from missing colony reports. "These are our people," Sora said. "Colonies that were supposed to be lost in space accidents. Navigation errors. Equipment failures." The images showed humans in cages. Humans being studied like laboratory animals. Humans dying in terrible experiments. The Convergence had been taking human settlements for 50 years. Not many, just enough to study humanity without being noticed. "There's more," Mi-young said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "The Convergence has classified humanity as something called Prime Specimen Category." "What does that mean?" "We're special. The report says humans are unusually good at surviving and fighting. They want to study us more before they—" She could not finish the sentence. Dongwu read the translation himself. The cold, scientific language made it even more horrible. Humans were interesting to the Convergence because they did not give up easily. Most species, when faced with certain death, became weak and hopeless. Humans became more dangerous. The Convergence found this fascinating. They wanted to understand it better. They planned to capture all of humanity for their experiments. The final part of the message contained coordinates and a timeline. The Convergence fleet would arrive at Earth in 18 months. They called it Final Harvest Operations. "We have to warn everyone," Hyunsu said. "Who's going to believe this?" Mi Young asked. "It sounds like a nightmare." Dongwu was already moving to his communication console. "We send everything to Earth Command. All the data, all the translations, all the proof. It will take weeks for them to respond," Sora said. "Even longer for them to do anything about it. Then we send it to everyone. Every human world, every military base, every news network. Let them decide what to believe." As Dongwu prepared the transmission, a terrible thought occurred to him. The signal had been too easy to find. Too clear once they started working on it. Almost like someone wanted humanity to discover it. "Why?" he asked out loud. "Why what?" Ma Young looked at him. "Why send this to us? If they're planning to attack, why warn us first?" The team looked at each other. No one had an answer. Dongwu sent the message to Earth Command with the highest priority code. Then he sent copies to every human world he could reach. By morning, the transmission would be spreading across human space. He did not know it yet, but he had just changed everything. The signal that reached Harmony's Edge Station would do more than warn humanity about the coming threat. It would awaken something deep inside, the human mind that had been sleeping for thousands of years, something very old and very angry. The Convergence thought they understood humans from their experiments on captured colonists. They thought humans were just another species to be cataloged and destroyed. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The message from Harmony's Edge reached Earth Command at 3:15 in the morning, Earth time. Admiral Taemin Kang was sleeping when his emergency communicator woke him up. He had been in the military for 30 years and knew that middle-of-the-night calls meant trouble. "This better be important," he said as he answered the call. "Sir, we have a priority alpha transmission from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. You need to see this immediately." 20 minutes later, Admiral Kang sat in the emergency briefing room with 5 other senior officers. They watched the alien transmission in complete silence. When it ended, no one spoke for a long time. "Is this real?" asked General Hyojin Moon. "The technical analysis confirms it," replied Dr. Yoonji Nam, Earth's top expert on alien psychology. "The neural patterns embedded in those death screams are genuine. No one could fake this level of psychological trauma." 18 months, Admiral Kang said quietly. "They're giving us 18 months before they arrive." "If they arrive," said Defense Minister Kyung Ho-shin. "This could be someone playing a very cruel joke." "With what purpose?" Dr. Nam asked. "To cause panic? To make us waste resources on a fake threat?" The debate continued for hours. Some officials thought the transmission was a trick designed to make humanity waste time and money on unnecessary preparations. Others believed it was completely real and wanted to start building weapons immediately. While the leaders argued, something else was happening across human space. The transmission was spreading through unofficial channels. Dongwu had sent copies to news networks, military bases, and scientific stations. Within days, nearly every human in the galaxy had heard about it, and something strange began to happen to them. Jin Ho-yu was a former colonial marine who now flew cargo ships between star systems. He was loading supplies on Mars when he first heard about the transmission. That night he had the most vivid dream of his life. In the dream he was flying a warship through burning space. Enemy vessels surrounded him, but he felt no fear. Instead, he felt a cold, focused anger unlike anything he had ever experienced. He knew exactly how to fight these ships, exactly where their weak points were, exactly how to make them burn. He woke up knowing things he had never learned. Technical details about weapon systems he had never seen. Battle tactics he had never studied. It was as if someone else's knowledge had been poured into his brain while he slept. Jin Ho was not alone. Across human space, millions of people reported similar dreams. They dreamed of fighting alien ships, of boarding enemy stations, of battles in the darkness between stars. But these were not random nightmares. They were detailed, tactical visions that left people with new knowledge and skills. On Mars, Anthropologist HFY Park documented what she called species-level memory activation. She interviewed hundreds of people who had experienced the dreams and found a pattern. Humans everywhere were accessing some kind of shared knowledge about warfare and survival. It's like the transmission unlocked something in our brains, she explained to her research team. Some kind of genetic memory that's been dormant for thousands of years. The dreams were just the beginning. Crime rates dropped to almost zero as humans instinctively began forming protective groups. Families, neighborhoods, and entire cities organized themselves for defense without any official orders. People who had never touched weapons suddenly wanted to learn how to fight. Military recruitment centers were overwhelmed. Men and women lined up for hours, demanding to join the armed forces. Even elderly people and children wanted to help prepare for the coming war. Captain Si-hoon commanded the battleship Terra's Wrath. 2 weeks after the transmission, he noticed his crew was performing far better than they ever had before. Combat simulations that used to challenge experienced soldiers were now completed easily by new recruits. "It's impossible," he told Admiral Kang during a video call. "My gunners are hitting targets they shouldn't be able to see. My pilots are flying maneuvers that would normally take years to master. It's like they already know how to fight this enemy." Similar reports came from every military vessel in the human fleet. Soldiers, pilots, and officers were developing skills at an incredible rate. More importantly, they were developing an intense hatred for the convergence that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside them. Dr. Yoonji Nam studied brain scans from volunteers who had experienced the dreams. What she found changed everything. "The transmission isn't just a warning," she told Admiral Kang. "It's actually rewriting human neural pathways. Every person who heard those alien death screams is experiencing the final memories of extinct species. Their brains are learning from the combat experiences of dozens of different civilizations. You're saying we're absorbing their knowledge? More than that, we're absorbing their will to survive, their anger at being destroyed, their determination to fight back. It's all being compressed into human minds, and somehow we're handling it better than any other species could. Why? Because humans are naturally good at learning from trauma. Most species, when faced with overwhelming horror, shut down. Humans get angry and figure out how to fight back. The transmission has given us the tactical knowledge of 100 extinct civilizations, and our brains are using it to prepare for war. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just preparing to defend itself against the convergence. It was evolving into something the galaxy had never seen before, a species with the combat knowledge of every civilization the convergence had ever destroyed. But the most shocking discovery came from deep space. Captain Jinho Yu was flying his cargo ship through the outer system when he detected a strange signal. It was very weak and seemed to be coming from an area where no human settlements existed. Following his new instincts, he changed course to investigate. What he found changed everything he thought he knew about the war. A hidden base built into an asteroid, completely invisible to normal scanners. Inside were 3,000 humans who were supposed to have died 12 years ago, when their colony ship disappeared. Their leader was Commander Nari Lim, a woman who looked like she had been fighting a war for her entire life. Her people were armed with weapons Jinho had never seen before and wore armor that seemed to bend light around it. "You received the transmission," she said when Jinho docked with their base. "It was not a question. How did you know?" "Because we sent it." Commander Lim explained that several human colonies had been attacked by the convergence over the past 50 years, but not all of them had been completely destroyed. Some survivors had escaped and had been hiding in deep space, fighting a secret war against convergent scout ships. "We've been waiting," she told Jinho, "waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. The transmission was our way of preparing the rest of humanity for what's coming. Why wait? Why not warn us years ago? Because you needed to be ready. The convergence isn't just another enemy. It's something that has been destroying civilizations for millions of years. Regular humans wouldn't have been able to fight it. But humans who have absorbed the combat memories of its victims, that's different." Commander Lim showed Jinho recordings of their battles with convergence ships. The hidden colonists had developed fighting techniques that seemed almost supernatural. They moved and fought like they could read their enemies' minds. "The transmission has given you the same abilities," she explained. "Every human who heard it is now connected to the collective memory of every species the convergence has destroyed. You're not just fighting for humanity anymore. You're fighting for everyone who was ever killed by this thing." Jinho understood now why the dreams felt so real. They were real. The memories of alien warriors who had fought and died against the Convergence were now part of human consciousness. Humanity had become the inheritor of 1,000,000 years of tactical knowledge and bitter determination. When he returned to human space, Jin-Ho carried more than just news about the hidden colonies. He carried proof that humanity was no longer the same species it had been a month ago. The transmission had not just warned them about the coming war, it had transformed them into something capable of winning it. Admiral Kang realized that the question was no longer whether humanity could survive the Convergence's attack. The question was whether the Convergence was prepared for what humanity was becoming. 16 months remained before the Convergence fleet would reach Earth. Admiral Taemin Kang stood in the war room of the new military command center. Looking at star charts that showed the positions of every human world, the transformation of his species was almost complete. "Show me the latest production numbers," he said to his aide. The holographic display showed columns of data that would have been impossible just a year ago. Humanity was building warships faster than any civilization in recorded history. Not just building them, but designing new ones that incorporated ideas from the absorbed memories of extinct species. Fleet Commander Yongmi Seo entered the room carrying a data pad. She had been promoted 3 times in the past year as the military expanded at incredible speed. "The shipyards are ahead of schedule," she reported. "We'll have 12,000 combat vessels ready when the Convergence arrives." But the real breakthrough is in the crew training. What kind of breakthrough? Our pilots are learning faster than our instructors can teach them. Yesterday, a rookie completed an advanced combat course that normally takes 6 months. He finished it in 3 days. Admiral Kang was not surprised. Dr. Yunji, Nam's research had shown that humans were not just learning from the transmitted alien memories. They were integrating them into their own thinking. Every person who heard the transmission now had access to tactical knowledge that had taken other species centuries to develop. "What about the psychological effects?" he asked. Commander Seo's expression became serious. "That's more complicated. The anger isn't going away. If anything, it's getting stronger. Our soldiers don't just want to defend humanity. They want to hunt down every Convergence ship in the galaxy and destroy them." This was the part that worried Admiral Kang the most. The transmission had not just given humanity knowledge and skills. It had filled them with the dying rage of dozens of extinct civilizations. Every human now carried the memory of species that had been tortured and killed by the Convergence. Dr. Yunji Nam entered the room as if she had been summoned by their conversation. She looked tired but determined. "I have the final psychological evaluation," she said. "The transformation is permanent. Humans will never go back to what they were before the transmission. Is that good or bad?" "Both. The good news is that we've evolved into the most effective fighting force the galaxy has ever seen. The bad news is that we've also become a species of permanent warriors. The rage won't fade after we defeat the Convergence. It will always be part of us." Admiral Kang absorbed this information. "Can we control it?" "We can direct it. The anger isn't random or destructive. It's focused on protecting life and preventing extinction. We're not becoming monsters. We're becoming guardians." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Captain Jin-Ho Yu. His face appeared on the main screen, and he looked excited. "Admiral, we've made contact with more survivor colonies. Not just human ones." "What do you mean?" "Species that were supposedly extinct. The Convergence didn't kill everyone it attacked. Survivors from dozens of civilizations have been hiding throughout the galaxy, fighting a guerrilla war for thousands of years." The screen changed to show representatives of alien species that had been considered extinct for centuries. They looked different from their historical records, harder, more dangerous, shaped by generations of warfare against the Convergence. "We've been waiting for a species like yours," said a tall, thin alien whose people had supposedly died out 5,000 years ago. "A species that could unite us and lead a coordinated attack." "Why us?" Admiral Kang asked. "Because you're the first species to survive exposure to the Convergence's psychological warfare. Other species either went insane or became too traumatized to fight effectively. Humans absorbed the trauma and transformed it into strength." The alien explained that the Convergence had been using the same strategy for millions of years. They would study a species, learn their weaknesses, then use psychological attacks to break their will before the final assault. The transmission that reached Harmony's Edge station had been meant to terrorize humanity into submission. Instead, it had backfired completely. The convergence doesn't understand species like yours, the alien continued. Most civilizations become weaker when faced with extinction. You become exponentially more dangerous. Engineer Bongsu Jiang had been working on humanity's secret weapon while these diplomatic contacts were being made. His team had reverse-engineered convergence technology captured from destroyed scout ships and combined it with human innovations. We call it a consciousness disruptor, he explained to Admiral Kang. The convergence operates as a collective mind. Individual ships are connected to a central intelligence that coordinates their actions. If we can disrupt that connection, the entire fleet becomes vulnerable. More than that, the disruption causes feedback through their network. It's like giving the collective mind a severe headache. The more ships we hit with it, the more confused and disorganized they become. The weapon was based on humanity's unique neural resilience. The same trait that allowed humans to absorb alien death memories without going insane also made them immune to the convergence's collective consciousness. Human ships equipped with the consciousness disruptor could not only avoid being absorbed into the convergence network, they could actively damage it. Commander Nari Lim arrived from the hidden colonies with disturbing intelligence about their enemy. She had been fighting convergence forces for 12 years and knew them better than any other human. The convergence isn't evil in the way we understand it, she explained to the War Council. It genuinely believes it's saving species from extinction by absorbing them into its collective consciousness. In its mind, every species will eventually destroy itself or be destroyed by natural disasters. By taking them first, it preserves their knowledge and culture forever. That doesn't make it less dangerous. No, but it explains why it's so persistent. The convergence sees itself as the galaxy's protector. It has the memories and knowledge of millions of species that it has saved over the eons. In its view, we're the destructive ones for resisting salvation. This revelation changed how humanity approached the coming war. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting to end a form of madness that had been spreading across the galaxy for millions of years. The convergence had to be stopped not just because it threatened humanity, but because it threatened all life. The final months before the expected attack were filled with frantic preparation. Human colonies were evacuated or transformed into military bases. Civilians were trained in combat and evacuation procedures. The entire species mobilized for total war. But humanity's real advantage was not their ships or weapons. It was their psychology. Dr. Nam's final report showed that humans had developed an almost telepathic understanding of convergence tactics. The absorbed alien memories included the experiences of species that had fought the convergence for hundreds of years before being defeated. Humans now knew every strategy, every weakness, every pattern of behavior their enemy used. More importantly, they had developed countermeasures that no other species had ever been able to create. We're not going to defend against the convergence, Admiral Kang announced to his commanders. We're going to hunt it. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. Instead of waiting for the convergence fleet to arrive at Earth, human forces would intercept it in deep space. But that was only the beginning. Reconnaissance. Missions had located the source of convergence ships, a massive construction facility near the galactic core where new vessels had been built for millions of years. Humanity's ultimate goal was not just to defeat the incoming fleet, but to destroy the source itself. We're going to end this, Commander Seo told her ship captains. Not just for us, but for every species the convergence has ever destroyed. The transmitted memories of all those extinct civilizations are demanding justice, and we're going to give it to them. The convergence had made one fatal mistake. In trying to terrify humanity into submission, they had instead created an enemy unlike anything they had faced before. An enemy that carried the combat wisdom and burning rage of every species they had ever destroyed. An enemy that would not stop until the convergence itself was extinct. 6 months after their first victory, humanity had become the most feared force in the galaxy. The Liberation Armada, as they now called themselves, included ships and crews from 47 different species. All of them had one thing in common. They had suffered under the convergence and wanted revenge. Admiral Taemin Kang stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked known convergence positions. There were thousands of them, spreading out from the galactic core like a disease. Status report. he said to Commander Nari Lim, who had become his chief tactical advisor. "We've destroyed 17 convergence outposts in the past month," she reported. "Each victory makes our forces stronger as more survivor species join us. But we're also learning disturbing things about our enemy, such as, they're not trying to stop us. Every battle we fight, they could have brought more ships, better weapons, stronger defenses. Instead, they seem to be studying us. This had been troubling Admiral Kang for weeks. The convergence forces they fought put up resistance, but not as much as they were capable of. It felt like the enemy was letting humanity win smaller battles while preparing for something much larger." Dr. Yoon Ji Nam entered the bridge carrying a data pad with her latest research. Her studies of human psychology had become even more important as the war progressed. "I have the results of the latest psychological evaluations," she said. "The transformation is accelerating. Human neural patterns are continuing to evolve." "In what way?" "We're becoming a permanently militarized species. The rage that was awakened by the original transmission isn't fading. It's becoming a fundamental part of human nature. Future generations will be born with this anger already part of their minds." Admiral Kang absorbed this information. "Is that necessarily bad?" "Not bad, but irreversible. Humanity will never again be a peaceful species. We're evolving into eternal guardians, always ready for war, always suspicious of threats. It's what we need to be to fight the convergence. But it means we can never go back to what we were." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Captain Jin Ho Yu. He was leading a deep reconnaissance mission toward the Galactic core, trying to locate the main convergence stronghold. "Admiral, we found it." His voice crackled through the communication system. "But you're not going to believe how big it is." The main screen showed images that took several seconds to process. The convergence had built an artificial world around a massive black hole near the center of the galaxy. The structure was larger than most solar systems, with billions of ships docked at its surface. "How many?" Admiral Kang asked. "Our sensors can't count them all. Millions of ships at least, maybe tens of millions. And they're all connected to the same central intelligence we fought before, but much more powerful." "What about defenses?" "That's the strange part. It's barely defended at all, almost like they want us to attack it." Engineer Bong-Soo Jang had been working on upgrades to the consciousness disruptor technology. His latest version was powerful enough to disrupt the convergence's collective mind on a massive scale, but using it required a terrible price. "The weapon works by interfacing a human brain directly with the convergence consciousness," he explained to the War Council. "The human neural patterns act as a virus that breaks down their collective thinking. But the process will destroy the mind of whoever volunteers to do it. A suicide mission. Worse than that, the volunteer will experience the memories and death agonies of every species the convergence has ever absorbed. Billions of different forms of suffering all at once. It would be like dying a million deaths simultaneously." Despite this, volunteers stepped forward immediately. The rage awakened by the original transmission had given humans a sense of purpose that transcended individual survival. They were not just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for every species that had ever been destroyed. Captain Jin Ho Yu was the first to volunteer, but Admiral Kang refused his request. "I need you alive to command the fleet after this is over," he said. "Then I'll do it," said Captain Sehun. "Oh, as will I," added Commander Nari Lim. Soon, dozens of officers were volunteering for the suicide mission. The decision of who would make the ultimate sacrifice became one of the most difficult choices Admiral Kang had ever faced. The final assault began with the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Over 50,000 ships from dozens of species converged on the convergent stronghold. But as they approached, something unexpected happened. The massive artificial world began broadcasting a signal, not the usual convergence communications, but something that sounded almost like a plea. "Wait," the transmission said in perfect human language. "Please listen." Against all military protocol, Admiral Kang ordered the fleet to hold position. The signal continued. "We know who you are. We know what you carry. You hold the memories and anger of all our victims. We have been waiting for someone like you to arrive." "Waiting for what?" Admiral Kang responded. "To end our suffering." The truth that emerged was more horrible than anyone had imagined. The original convergent species had not become evil conquerors. They had been trying to save the galaxy from a different threat, the heat death of the universe itself. By absorbing other species into their collective consciousness, they thought they could preserve life forever, even after all the stars burned out. But the process had gone wrong. Each absorbed species brought not just knowledge but trauma, pain, and the terror of extinction. Over millions of years, the Convergence Collective had become a repository of infinite suffering. They could not die, could not forget, and could not stop the compulsion to save other species by absorbing them. "We have tried to destroy ourselves," the transmission explained. "But we cannot. The collective consciousness will not permit suicide. We are trapped in a cycle of causing the very suffering we sought to prevent. Then why attack humanity? Because you are the first species we have encountered that can resist absorption. You can enter our collective consciousness and emerge intact. You can do what we cannot, end this madness from within." Captain Jinho Yu realized what they were asking. They want us to kill them. Not just their ships, but their entire collective consciousness. They want us to commit genocide to end their suffering. The decision was agonizing. The Convergence had destroyed countless civilizations, but they had done it believing they were saving them. They were victims of their own compassion, trapped in a form of existence that had become worse than death. "If we do this," Admiral Kang asked, "what happens to all the absorbed consciousness? All the species you've collected over the millions of years? They will be freed, released to whatever comes after death. It is what they have been begging for since we took them." The final assault was unlike any battle in galactic history. Instead of trying to destroy the Convergent stronghold, human forces worked to penetrate its defenses and reach the central core. Captain Jinho Yu led the mission, carrying the enhanced consciousness disruptor that would end the collective forever. Inside the massive artificial world, he found something that broke his heart. Billions of beings from thousands of species, all connected to machines that kept their bodies alive while their minds experienced endless suffering. They had been preserved by the Convergence, but preservation had become eternal torture. "Thank you," they whispered as Jinho approached the central processing unit. "Thank you for ending this." He activated the consciousness disruptor and felt his mind connect with the vast collective intelligence of the Convergence. For a moment, he experienced what they had endured for millions of years. The simultaneous death agonies of countless civilizations, the weight of infinite guilt and suffering, the desperate desire for oblivion that could never be satisfied. But unlike the Convergence, Jinho's human mind could process the trauma without being destroyed by it. The absorbed memories of extinct species, the same memories that had driven the Convergence insane, gave him the strength to endure the connection. Through the neural link, he spread a simple message to every part of the collective consciousness. "You can rest now." The effect was immediate. Across the artificial world, machines shut down, ships powered off. The collective consciousness that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years simply stopped. The silence that followed was profound. For the first time in eons, the galaxy was free from the Convergence threat, but the victory came with a sobering realization. Humanity had not just defeated an enemy, they had become something new. The rage awakened by the original transmission had transformed them into a species of permanent guardians. Admiral Kang established the Human Concordat, dedicated to preventing any future species from falling to collective madness or extinction-level threats. Human ships began patrolling the galaxy, watching for signs of civilizations in distress. Dr. Yoonji Nam's final report revealed the ultimate irony. The transmission that had awakened humanity's endless rage had been sent by the last free fragment of the original Convergence consciousness, the part of them that still remembered their original purpose and wanted to end their own suffering. "They chose us," she explained, "because they recognized something in human psychology that could both resist their collective madness and end it with mercy rather than hatred." The Convergence fleet arrived 3 weeks early. Their massive ships dropped out of hyperspace, expecting to find a panicked, defenseless humanity huddled around Earth. Instead, they found empty space where the major human colonies should have been. Admiral Tae Min Kang watched the enemy fleet from his command ship. Human rage hidden behind the dark side of a dead moon. The Convergence had brought over 2,000 vessels, more than intelligence reports had predicted. But humanity was ready. "All ships, this is Admiral Kang," he broadcast on the encrypted military channel. Execute Operation Retribution. Across 17 star systems, human fleets that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind planets suddenly revealed themselves. The battle began not at Earth, but everywhere at once. Captain Si-Hoon commanded the first wave of attack ships. His squadron dropped out of hyperspace directly behind the Convergence rearguard, weapons already firing. The consciousness disruptor weapons worked exactly as Engineer Zhang had promised. The enemy ships began losing coordination immediately. Target their command nodes, O ordered his pilots. Make them deaf and blind. The human fighters moved with precision that amazed even their own commanders. Pilots who had been rookies just months ago flew like veterans with decades of experience. They seemed to know instinctively where enemy weapons would fire and how to avoid them. But the real shock came when the Convergence tried to use their most powerful weapon, the ability to absorb the consciousness of their enemies and add their knowledge to the collective. It did not work on humans. Dr. Yunji Nam had been right. The same neural resilience that allowed humans to survive the transmitted alien death memories also made them immune to convergence absorption. When the enemy tried to penetrate human minds, they encountered something they had never faced before, a mental defense system built from the combined will of 100 extinct species. They can't touch us, reported Captain Jin Ho-yu as his boarding team fought their way through a disabled convergence ship. Their mental attacks just bounce off. The tables had turned. Instead of being absorbed by the convergence, human fighters were actively disrupting the enemy's collective consciousness. Every ship they boarded, every command node they destroyed, made the entire convergence fleet more confused and disorganized. Commander Nari Lim led the survivor fleets in the battle's second phase. Her people had been fighting the convergence for years and knew their technology better than anyone. They targeted the specific systems that maintained the enemy's group coordination. Focus fire on the neural relay stations, she ordered. Sever their mental connections. Behind the convergence fleet, ships from dozens of supposedly extinct species emerged from hiding. The galaxy's survivors had finally come together under humanity's leadership. Species that had been thought dead for thousands of years brought ancient weapons and forgotten technologies to the fight. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Instead of two fleets fighting each other, it was a galaxy-wide uprising against an enemy that had terrorized civilizations for millions of years. Captain Si-Hoon led his squadron in a desperate assault on the Convergence flagship. The massive ship was 10 kilometers long and protected by shields that had never been penetrated by any weapon. But human technology was different now. The consciousness disruptors had been modified to work not just on individual ships, but on the flagship's central command structure. If they could reach the core of the ship and deploy the weapon there, they could disrupt the entire convergence fleet at once. We only get one chance at this, O told his pilots as they approached the flagship. Stay together and keep moving. Don't let them lock onto us. The flagship's defenses were incredible. Beams of energy that could destroy planets swept through space trying to catch the tiny human fighters. But the pilots moved with inhuman precision, guided by the combat memories of species that had fought similar battles eons ago. 3 fighters were destroyed in the approach, but O and his remaining pilots reached the flagship's surface. They found an entry port just as the intelligence from captured convergence ships had indicated. Boarding teams go, O ordered as his ship docked with the enemy vessel. What they found inside changed everything. The convergence flagship was not just a ship, it was a vast mind. The corridors were lined with organic computing systems that pulsed like living tissue, but more disturbing were the voices, millions of them. The consciousness of every species the convergence had ever absorbed was trapped inside the ship's computer systems. They were not dead. They were imprisoned in a digital hell where they experienced their own destruction over and over again. This is why they're insane, Jin Ho-yu realized as he fought his way toward the ship's core. They've been carrying the traumatic memories of billions of beings for millions of years. The pain has driven them completely mad. The convergent soldiers they fought were not evil conquerors. They were victims of their own weapon. The collective consciousness that was supposed to preserve other species had instead become a repository of endless suffering. Jin Ho reached the flagship's central core and found something that shocked him. The original convergent species, The beings who had started this madness millions of years ago were still alive. Barely. They were connected to massive machines that kept their bodies functioning while their minds were lost in the collective consciousness. They had intended to preserve other species by absorbing them, but had instead doomed themselves to experience the death agonies of every civilization they destroyed. "End it," one of them managed to whisper through damaged vocal cords. "Please, end the pain." Jinho understood. The Convergence had not become evil by choice. They had been trying to save the galaxy from extinction, and had accidentally created something far worse, a form of existence where death and suffering never ended. He activated the consciousness disruptor at maximum power. The effect was immediate and devastating. Throughout the Convergence fleet, the collective consciousness began to fragment. Ships lost coordination and started drifting aimlessly. Some began firing on their own vessels as the mental network collapsed. But the disruptor did more than just disable the fleet. It began to separate the absorbed consciousness of extinct species from the Convergence collective. For the first time in millions of years, the voices of the dead were free to speak. They had only one message: gratitude. The battle ended not with explosions or dramatic last stands, but with silence. The Convergence fleet simply stopped functioning as their collective mind dissolved into its component parts. Most of the ships shut down completely. Others began broadcasting surrender signals in languages that had been dead for eons. Admiral Kang received reports from across the battle zone. Humanity had won, but the victory felt strange. They had defeated an enemy that had been trying to save them in its own twisted way. "What do we do with the survivors?" Commander Yongmi Seo asked. The few remaining Convergence beings were catatonic, their minds finally free from the collective but too damaged to function normally. The ships contained millions of preserved bodies from absorbed species, some of which might still be revived. "We helped them," Admiral Kang said, "the same way we would want to be helped if we had been in their position." But the victory came with a sobering realization. The Convergence fleet they had defeated was just a small part of a much larger entity. Intelligence gathered from captured ships revealed the true scope of their enemy. Near the galactic core was a massive structure, artificial world where the Convergence had been building its strength for millions of years. The fleet that attacked humanity was just a scouting force. The real Convergence, with billions of ships and the accumulated knowledge of countless civilizations, was still out there. "We've won a battle," Admiral Kang announced to his fleet commanders, "but the war's just beginning. They know about us now. They know we can resist them. The next attack won't be a harvest operation. It will be an extermination." The transmission that had awakened humanity's rage had done more than prepare them for one battle. It had started a conflict that would determine the fate of the entire galaxy. Humanity now faced a choice that would define their species forever. They could return home, fortify their worlds, and hope the main Convergence force would leave them alone, or they could take the fight to the enemy and end the threat once and for all. The vote was unanimous. Every human commander, every allied species, every survivor colony chose the same option. They would hunt the Convergence to its source and destroy it completely. No matter how long it took or what the cost might be, the age of human expansion was over. The age of human vengeance had begun.